The small cafe on Main Street was buzzing with customers, the smell of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the scent of warm pastries. Waiters rushed between tables, voices overlapped in conversation, and the soft hum of jazz played in the background. At a corner table, James Turner, a 72-year-old retired Army veteran, sat alone. His faded Army jacket, worn-out boots, and calloused hands told a story that no one seemed interested in hearing. He had been coming to this cafe for weeks. It wasn't much, but he liked the routine. He would order a small black coffee, sit by the window, and watch the world move around him. But lately, something had changed. The baristas ignored him. The waiters barely acknowledged his presence. Other customers looked right past him, as if he weren't even there. Today was no different. He sat patiently, waiting for someone, anyone, to take his order. 10 minutes passed, then 15. A young waiter walked by, taking orders from a businessman at the next table. James raised a hand slightly, his voice calm but firm. "Excuse me, son. Could I get a coffee, please?" The waiter barely glanced at him. "I'll be right back, sir." But he never returned. James sighed, adjusting the cap on his head. He wasn't looking for special treatment, just a little respect. He had spent 30 years serving his country, tours in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. He had seen things no man should see. Now he was just another forgotten soldier, one of many who had given their youth, their strength, and their souls for a country that barely noticed them anymore. His stomach growled softly, but his wallet was nearly empty. The last of his pension had gone toward rent, and he had been stretching his funds for weeks. Maybe today wasn't worth the trouble. Just as he was about to stand up and leave, the cafe door swung open, and in walked someone who would change everything. The moment he entered, the energy in the cafe shifted. Conversations paused, heads turned, and waiters suddenly stood at attention. Keanu Reeves. Dressed simply in a dark jacket, jeans, and a beanie, Keanu carried himself with a quiet humility. Unlike most celebrities, he didn't arrive with a security team or an entourage. No flashing cameras, no special treatment. He just walked in like any other customer. The cafe's staff practically tripped over themselves to greet him. "Mr. Reeves, please have a seat. What can we get for you?" Keanu smiled politely, but didn't sit. Instead, his sharp eyes scanned the room, until they landed on James. He noticed the untouched table, the veteran's jacket, the disappointed look in the old man's eyes. And then, Keanu did something no one expected. Ignoring the waiter at his side, he walked straight over to James's table. James looked up, startled, as Keanu Reeves stood before him, smiling warmly. "Mind if I sit with you?" Keanu asked. James blinked, caught off guard. "Of course." "Mr. Reeves?" Keanu chuckled. "Just Keanu is fine." He pulled out the chair across from James and sat down as if they were old friends. The cafe fell silent. The same waiters who had ignored James just minutes ago rushed over with menus. "Mr. Reeves, can we get you anything? Maybe a special table?" Keanu held up a hand, stopping them. "I think we'll both have coffee, and let's get my friend here something to eat." The waiter hesitated. "Of course, sir. Right away." James exhaled slowly, shaking his head with a small chuckle. "Son, I've been sitting here for half an hour waiting for someone to take my order. You show up and suddenly I'm treated like royalty." Keanu's expression softened. "That's not how it should be." James looked around. Customers who hadn't given him a second glance before were now staring in curiosity, whispering among themselves. "You didn't have to do this," James said. Keanu leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. I wanted to. You deserve respect, not just when someone famous sits with you, but every day. The two men talked for nearly an hour. James shared stories of his time in the army, the places he had been, the battles he had fought, the friends he had lost. Keanu listened intently, asking questions, showing genuine interest. For the first time in a long time, James felt seen. As their meal ended, Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out a crisp envelope. James frowned. "What's this?" Keanu smiled. "Just a little something to make sure you're taken care of." James opened it, and his hands trembled. Inside was a check for $10,000. James looked up, his eyes welling with tears. "Keanu? I can't take this." Keanu patted his shoulder. "You served your country. Now let someone serve you." James swallowed the lump in his throat. "I don't know how to thank you." Keanu smiled. "When you get the chance, do something kind for someone else. That'll be thanks enough." The cafe staff watched in awe as Keanu left without any fanfare. No cameras, no publicity, just a simple act of respect. James sat there for a long time, staring at the check, at the untouched coffee, at the waiters who now avoided his gaze, ashamed of how they had treated him before. He knew that money would help, but what mattered more was the respect he had been shown. As he stood to leave, he held his head a little higher. Respect shouldn't depend on fame or status. A person's worth isn't measured by their appearance, their wealth, or how many people recognize their name. It's measured by their story, their sacrifices, and their heart. Kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything. And sometimes the right person steps in at just the right moment,